Across the spiral lanes of known space, there existed an unspoken rule. Some worlds were hunted, some were taxed, some were erased. But one kind was never chosen: humans. The reason was not written in law. It was not taught in academies. It was learned. The hard way. The coalition of Reach spanned thousands of systems and hundreds of species. Its fleets moved like migrating storms. Its councils debated with cold logic. Its wars were measured and efficient hand. Yet whenever routes were plotted and targets selected, one name was always absent: Earth. The younger species whispered about it in trade ports. The older ones remembered it in silence. A junior analyst named Ivan finally asked the question, "Why do we never target human space?" The chamber did not answer him at first. Screens dimmed, advisors shifted their stance, the air itself seemed to pause. Then the archivist spoke, "Because humans are not." Evan pressed further. "They are not the strongest, not the largest, not the most advanced. Their fleets are smaller than ours. Their worlds are fewer." The archivist inclined its head. "They survive." That answer satisfied no one. So the archivist opened the sealed record. Before the coalition existed, there was the age of expansion. Empires rose on equations and collapsed on arrogance. Worlds were taken by force and forgotten by name. Humans were late to the stars. By the time they arrived, the best systems were gone. The safe paths were claimed, the treaties were closed. So humans settled the margins, cold rocks, unstable suns, regions others ignored. They adapted gravity that crushed others, forged dense bone and muscle. Radiation that stripped cells taught them repair. Scarcity bred cooperation, then competition, then innovation. When the first predators arrived, they expected surrender. Instead, they found resistance. The first war was brief. A raiding force entered a human colony expecting extraction and tribute. They found traps built from mining tools, vehicles converted into weapons, civilians who fought without hesitation. The raiders withdrew with losses they could not explain. They returned with a fleet the humans had already learned supply. Lines vanished, navigation beacons lied. Empty space became a weapon. The invaders won every battle and lost the war win. The last ship fled human space. The cost had exceeded any gain. Other empires watched and adjusted. Humans were marked as inefficient targets. Then came the plague cycle. A bioengineered scourge swept through the inner system. Species with millennia of genetic refinement collapsed within generations. Humans were hit late and survived early. Their biology adapted, their medicine improvised. Their societies fractured and reformed. They did not emerge stronger, they emerged relentless. They shared cures freely, then remembered who had refused them. Adexed came the silence evente wave of null energy, erased communications across 100 sectors. Civilizations dependent on networks descended into chaos. Human systems went quiet, then reappeared. They had prepared for isolation, they had planned for collapse, they had trained for worse days. They called it contingency. Others called it obsession. When the silence lifted, humans arrived with maps updated by hand, records kept on physical media ships. Guided by human instinct, they rescued some, ignored others, and never forgot who they saved. The archivist paused and realized the chamber was listening not to history, but to warning humans. Do not dominate by conquest, they dominate by endurance. They remember losses, they remember betrayals, they remember favors. They do not need to be the strongest today. They only need to last longer than you. A counselor asked the question no one else would. What if we had to fight them? Archivist answered without hesitation. Then do not miss. Human strategy did not rely on single victories. It relied on attrition, on patience, on making the cost unbearable. They would trade ground for time, ships for data, cities for survival, and when the enemy was exhausted, humans would still be standing of and thought of the quiet traitors he had seen. The engineers who laughed easily, the diplomats who smiled while recording everything he understood. Humans were never targeted because every conflict with them became a story with no ending. They did not seek dominance. They accumulated it. One survived colony, one remembered war. One generation teaching the next across the galaxy. Flags changed, empires faded, but human presence only expanded. Not fast, not loud, persistent. The archivist close the record. That is why we do not target humans, because they do not need to win. They only need to endure.